welcome back. I'm Courtney, and this is the Accounting Struggle, where we speak about our struggles with accounting openly and honestly. We do not run from them. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much for being here again. Today's video is going to be a comparison of the EA credential versus the CPA, CPA being the Certified Public Accountant, and the EA being the Enrolled Agent. So I am giving you a little bit of pink realness, pink and purple realness today. I feel like life is just too short to have boring hair, and so, you know, why not? So that's where we are, and that's what I'm giving the girls today. So I wanted to do this video because I feel like there is, I've talked a little bit about different certifications that you can have in accounting in another video, which I'll link in the cards, but I wanted to specifically look at the EA versus the CPA because I see a lot of comparisons in the social media space. I see a lot of advertising from EAs and how that is worded specifically, and I see a lot of the comments, and I just feel like there's this commentary about which one is better and which one makes the most sense. And so I wanted to do a breakdown for you just so you can get a better idea. There isn't a right one, unless of course you're gonna go with the CPA. No, I'm kidding. There isn't a right one. It just depends on what your goals are and what you want to do with your career. So what I want to start with is which one makes the most sense and which one should you go with. In order to really do that, you have to ask yourself what type of career you want and what you want to be focused in and what you want your options to look like. If you are 100% sure that you want to be working in tax, not even like you, let's just say you stumbled across this video because you were looking for stuff for an EA and you keep hearing about the CPA but you don't know a lot about it. The EA is an attractive option for someone who wants to have a micro focus in tax, no interest in anything outside of tax or outside of like the wide broad scope of accounting. You're not interested in any auditing services or assurance services. You're not interested in venturing into that space. You're not looking to go back to college and get a degree in accounting. You don't want to do all that, and you know you want to have a focus that is specific to tax. Then the EA may be the best option for you. Now, if you are a student and you're looking at this video and you're trying to determine what should I do? Do I want to go for the CPA if the EA can do a lot of the same stuff? Like, what is the point? So just keep watching and I'll go ahead and break down some differences. So I'll just start with defining what each one is. So enrolled agents are tax preparers who are able to represent their clients in front of the IRS. An enrolled agent is not necessarily an accountant, although many accountants do get their EA certification and become enrolled agents, but not every enrolled agent is an accountant, and that is not a requirement for being an enrolled agent. Whereas the CPA is a certified public accountant. So as a certified public accountant, you have many different type of career fields that you can be in, which we'll get into in a second. But a CPA is someone who is certified and licensed by their state, not by the federal government, but by the state, to practice accounting. So all CPAs are accountants, but not all enrolled agents are accountants. There can be overlap where many enrolled agents are accountants, but it's not a requirement. So there are many enrolled agents who specifically are tax preparers. They never got a degree in accounting or a degree at all. Some of them just go straight into their career with the IRS and they just begin doing tax preparation. So you don't have to be an accountant to be an enrolled agent. So those terms are not like synonymous, whereas with a CPA, the A is for accountant for a reason. So you actually are an accountant. So all CPAs are accountants. So there's a lot of differences between an EA and a CPA. So I'll just start with how you become either of those. So those are going to be the biggest differences. To get started as an EA, what you'll need is two ways that you can do it. If you have experience working for the IRS, that's one route that you can take. If you don't have any prior experience working with the IRS, then your other option is to get your P10, which is your paid tax ID number, through the IRS. I think it's $50, and you do that with the IRS, and then you can go ahead and start preparing to take the EA exam. So there are review courses online that you can get. And I'll leave the ones that I find in the description, but you basically will be preparing for this 3-part exam. There aren't any specific requirements that you need to meet before you're able to sit for this exam, so you can just go ahead and start preparing for it. It is 3 parts, and the only 2 months where you're not able to test would be in March and April. If you are a tax preparer, you're probably too busy in March and April anyway, so that makes sense. So you'll study and you'll take these 3 sections, and you'll go ahead and become an enrolled agent. And at that point, you can start working with your own clients or for a company. But that's kind of what the path and the journey looks like to become an enrolled agent. That's the short story. To become a CPA, it is a much lengthier journey. We'll start with, you have to have a degree. So you have to have at least, most states, the state that I'm licensed in requires 150 credit hours. So you do need a minimum of 120 credit hours, which is a bachelor's degree, but most states will require an additional 30 credit hours. Much of your undercourse or your undergraduate coursework does have to be in accounting, but there are plenty of people who get a bachelor's degree in something completely unrelated to accounting, and then they come back and do that additional 30 hours, get a certificate or whatever in accounting. So there are specifics. You will need to look at your state to see what those specifics are, but you do have to have a minimum 120 credit hours in order to become eligible to sit for the exam. So you do have to take and pass all 4 parts of the Uniform CPA exam, and that exam is notoriously difficult. So the average pass rate is somewhere between 45 and 55%, meaning most people who take it probably won't even pass. But the EA exam has an average pass rate of around 71%. So it's a lot more difficult to pass the CPA exam. And the other thing is, you only have 18 months to complete the entire exam. So once you pass the first section, not when you find out that you passed, but once you pass the first exam section, you have to finish the other exams within 18 months. And that can be difficult to do, but now the CPA exam offers rolling schedules, so they don't close off all those months like they used to do, which is great. When I was testing, every 3rd month of the quarter was closed and you couldn't test, and it made it extremely difficult. So you have to have your degree, you have to take and pass all 4 sections of the exam. Once you pass the CPA exam, in order to get licensed, you will have to take an ethics course. So you'll have to take that, and then you'll also need to work at least 1,000 hours under a licensed CPA. Most people, if you're working in public accounting or under a CPA, they just need to sign off to say that you met the hours requirement. So you have to get your degree, pass all 4 sections, and then you have to take the ethics exam, and then you have to work the amount of hours. So once you've done all 4 of those things, then and only then will you become licensed as a CPA. So the CPA exam is very broad, and it does cover a lot more than just tax, whereas the EA exam is specifically focused on tax. There is some overlap between the two. When you're looking at the CPA exam, the regulation portion, which is focused on the tax side of the exam, that most of that exam is going to be a lot of what you'll see on the EA exam, but there's also a heavy portion of business law and other concepts that are not given on the EA exam. Now let's talk a little bit about the cost of each one. So it's obviously far more expensive to get your CPA license and to get to the process of actually taking that exam. But looking at the EA exam, it's not like it's free. You still have to pay for that. So you have to get your P10, which is $50, and then you do need a review course typically in order to prepare yourself for the exam. Just like with any other state board exam or big exam that you're going to take, you'll need some help preparing for it. So the average review course that I was seeing online was about $1,000, $1,100. And then the exam itself with the fees and the registration cost, there's 3 parts. So altogether, you're going to pay somewhere around $450 to test for the exam and get your license as an EA. So the CPA exam, it's impossible for me to say what a general cost is, because college is going to be the biggest cost, and that can vary so much that there's no chance that I would ever be able to really give you a real number on that. So college aside, which is going to be the biggest cost of this, once you take that out of the picture, you're looking at just your exam fees and all of that. So if you get the average course for CPA exam prep, and this is a very wide range. There are some courses that are around $1,000. But on average, I know I took Becker when I was preparing for the CPA exam. It was $3,500. I did not have to pay for that out of pocket. A lot of firms will pay for your course for you. But if that's not the case and you have to pay out of pocket, the most expensive is about $3,500, which I believe is Becker is the most expensive of the girls. But you're gonna still on average pay somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 for the review course. Can you take this exam and pass without a review course? Probably not. It's unheard of. Find me somebody who did it. I bet you they're lying. So let's just say you go with a review course that's about $2,500. And you're still going to have to pay your initial application fee, which is $130. You'll have to pay for registration costs, which are about $75 per section. And then you have to pay your exam fees. Exam fees are $208.40 per section every single time you have to take it. Cannot tell you how many times I have a receipt that says $208.40, but I digress. And your background check, which is about $25. So when you add up all of those costs, that's if you find a review course that's around $2,500, you're going to end up spending somewhere close to about $3,780 or so. So let's just call it $3,800, and that's for the average review course. If you take that out, if you go with one of the more expensive courses, it will be more expensive. If you go with a lesser one or someone pays for your course for you, then that will help a lot with the cost. Plus there's scholarships and things like that, but the biggest cost, like I said before, is going to be your actual education, your degree in accounting or your degree in whatever you're getting. Plus, a lot of people, in order to reach the 150 credit hours, they go and get a master's. I didn't do that. I already had enough credits from my online school that scammed me out of an education, but a lot of people will get to the 120 credits and need another 30. So it's like, okay, I'm either going to double major in like finance or economics, or I'm going to just go ahead and get my master's in tax or my master's of accountancy. So that's what a lot of people do, which is even more expensive. So all that said, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get your CPA license, okay? So enrolled agents and CPAs are both required to keep up with CPE, continuing professional education credits. Every year you'll have to, because both are held to a high amount of integrity. Let's be clear, like, you're not out here scamming and stuff if you're an EA. You're still very much held to a high standard. I mean, you're enrolled with the IRS, the federal government. So with that said, you are required as an EA to have at least 72 continuing professional education credits per 3 years. You're required to get at least 16 hours per year. A CPA has to have at least 120 CPEs, and that's every 3 years. So on a rolling 3-year schedule, you have to have at least 120, a minimum of 20 of those hours per year. So I know in my state we have to have a specific Virginia ethics course, and a lot of states follow suit with that. So yeah, but they're throwing CPE out there. It's out there, it's everywhere, it's so available, it's so easy to get, but it does cost money. So that's an additional cost. A lot of times if you're working for a company, they will offer some CPE for free, especially if you're in public accounting. There is no shortage of CPE that will be available to you, but that is just something to consider with both. You do have to keep up with continuing professional education credits. So the biggest difference between an EA and a CPA will be the options that they have in their career. So an EA, an enrolled agent, will be working in tax, period, point blank. That's that on that. That is all that they are going to be doing. It's a career in tax. That's great if that's what you want. A lot of accountants who are CPAs only do tax. They start off their career in tax and they go all the way through to the end. So, you know, that's fine. But it's something that you really, really, really want to know that that's what you want to do before you niche down all the way to just limiting yourself to that as a career option. Now, many of you know I started my career in tax. I now work as an investment accountant, and I work corporate America doing that. But, you know, tax is always going to have my heart. But the point is, I have the option as a CPA to do other things outside of tax. If I wanted to go and work in audit, I suppose I could. If I wanted to work in any other field, I guess in accounting, like cost accounting or managerial, like there's other options for me because I have this certification that says that that's something that I can delve into. Whereas an EA doesn't necessarily have that option as just based on their credential. So that is something to consider. If you know for a fact that tax is where it's at for you, then no fuss, no muss. Just go ahead and get your EA. But if you think that you might want to be able to explore other things outside of just your EA, or excuse me, outside of just tax, then the EA credential will be limiting for that. Both an EA and a CPA can represent their clients before the IRS. An EA just cannot offer assurance services, whereas a CPA can. So an EA is seen as someone who is very much a tax expert, someone who is highly respected from a tax perspective. They are someone who you would really trust their tax advice. That's the overall perception of the EA credential. If you got a tax question, an EA probably can answer it and answer it correctly. That's kind of the idea behind it. It's very highly respected in the tax space. Whereas the CPA, a lot of CPAs may not ever work in tax, ever at all. There's this misconception like that if you are a CPA, then you just automatically know tax, and that's not the case. You do have to know some tax, obviously, to get your CPA, but you could have your CPA and never have worked in tax at all. So that is something to think about. Now, there's a lot of nonsense that I've been seeing out there in the blogs and in the just groups that I'm in and stuff, like Facebook groups and stuff, where there's this rhetoric like if you're a CPA, then you're not a tax specialist, you're not a tax strategist, you're not really about that tax life. And that is just, I push back at that. That's not true. There are CPAs who spend their entire careers in tax, who know everything there is to know, way up on all the tax stuff. They're really about their tax business. And so that's just something that I want to push back on. One credential is not necessarily better than the other, but overall the EA is going to have an exuberant amount of tax knowledge because that's where they're spending all of their career and all of their time. So they're going to know a lot about tax. Now, an accountant, a CPA, and you can be an accountant and be an EA. So I'm just putting that out there. But an accountant is going to have more broad knowledge, but it's also going to depend on where they spent their career. So there's no hard and fast rule for either one. You can be a CPA who spent your entire career in tax, who is very much a tax strategist, although there are so many advertisements from EAs that are like, your CPA is not a tax strategist and they're leading you astray. And that's nonsense. However, as a CPA, there are a lot of different things that you can be doing in your career, and one of them could be that you've never even touched tax in your life. So it really is just going to depend. So one of the big differences is also going to be earning potential. Because you are more limited in your career options, you are likely going to see a pay differential between EAs and CPAs. So starting CPA salaries are going to be slightly higher than starting EA salaries, even in the same position. Now, your opportunities for growth and your opportunities for earning potential if you're working for a company, and I say if you're working for a company because that's the key. If you're working for a company, then the CPA has the most earning potential, the highest earning potential in the long run, because there's a lot more that they can do in their careers. So the EA salary is going to be more capped. I believe I saw a statistic that was, on average, it was about a $20,000 difference in salary, annual salary between the two careers. And the reason why I said if you're working for a company is because there are EAs who are entrepreneurs who have their own, tax practices where they're servicing their own clients and they're making what some CPAs might make in a year, they're making that in a couple of months. So it really just depends on what your career is. Obviously, entrepreneurs, the sky is the limit. And that same goes for CPAs. I mean, the earning potential is through the roof. Whether you're with a company or not, you have a great earning potential. With the CPA, you can work in a lot of different industries. You can work in public accounting or private accounting. You can work in governmental. You can work for nonprofits. There are a lot of different options for you as a CPA. If you're wondering what is the best fit for you between the EA and the CPA, look at your qualifications. If you meet the qualifications to become a CPA, but you know you want a career in tax, I'm still going to tell you to get your CPA. I'm going to say that. But if you are not someone who already meets the qualifications for a CPA, if that would cost you so much money and so much time, and you already know that tax is your focus and that's where you want to spend your career, you love it, it's your jam, you have no interest in anything outside of that, by all means, the EA credential will suffice. You will do just fine in your career. You will still have a high earning potential if you are planning to, be an entrepreneur and have your own firm where you're servicing clients, you have build your own book of business. Then I think that you can definitely still make a lot of money. There's one of my favorite EAs. She doesn't know me, so I'm just throwing this out there, but her name is Krista Tyus. I found her on YouTube and she's incredible. She's an EA. She doesn't even have an accounting background or accounting degree, but she has done incredibly well for herself, and her career as an EA is like one of the most inspiring things that I've seen. But yeah, she's amazing, and she's not a CPA. So I just wanted to highlight that because there are so many EAs who do really well and they don't have a desire to really do audits or any of that stuff. So there isn't a real reason for them to go and get their degree in accounting and do all that just so that they can flex and be like, well, I'm a CPA. So, just something to think about if you stumbled across this video and you're not someone who meets the requirements and it would be so much red tape to get your CPA, and you want to focus on tax, then go with your EA. So if you've never worked in accounting and you've never worked in tax, you're not really sure where you're going to end up, and you do meet the requirements, or you're pretty close to meeting the requirements to be eligible to sit for the CPA exam, I'm absolutely going to push you to do that. So I break down all of the different accounting credentials, or many of the different accounting credentials, in another video which I will link. But the CPA is one of the highest regarded. It is second to none, and the reason is because it covers such a broad scope of topics. It covers audit, it covers tax, it covers finance, it covers cost, it covers managerial accounting, it covers governmental accounting, non-for-profit accounting. The list goes on. So because it covers so much, it doesn't get that deep. Like the EA is all about tax. It's a little, it's real deep. But with that said, the CPA covers so much, so it's going to give you the most opportunity. So if you get your CPA license and you start to work in tax and you decide that tax is not where you want to stay, then you have the option to go into another field. So that's something to think about. But I would push for the CPA all day, any day. Like I'm always going to vote for the CPA exam. So all of the resources that I can find on the EA and the CPA, I will leave those in the description for you if you are interested. If you want to know more about the EA and what that process looks like and what type of careers, and you just want to be in more of a space where people are talking about that stuff, I would say check out Krista Tyus' page. I will link her information in the description because she is an EA who speaks a lot about that. And then as far as the CPA, you can just stay here because I'll talk about that all the time on this channel. I have a playlist on the CPA exam where all of my CPA exam videos are linked. So if you want more information on that, definitely give those a view. So yeah, anyway, there's no right or wrong answer. It's really going to depend on what you want to do, who you want to be, all of that. And that will determine what is the best credential for you. Whatever you choose, do not slander the other because that's corny and we don't do that here. Okay? So thank you so much for watching. That's all that I had. If you have not already, please do subscribe. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That really helps me a lot. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.